welcome back to my channel. If you have not been here before, my name is Debbie and I read a lot of books, and after how many years of having this YouTube channel and one of the first bookish videos I made, I said I wanted to read the full Chronicles of Narnia. I have finally done it. I have finally done it. This book is finally finished. Can you believe it? I actually did it. And in the process, I managed to break the bookmark. It's attached to the spine of the book. But yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It still can be used as a bookmark. I just managed to pull the end off because it's an old book. I've had it for a very, very long time. This colour edition was printed in 1998, so I was 9 when this version came out. Yeah, so I'll bring up the blurb on my iPad because there's no blurbs here. And then I'll talk to you about The Last Battle by C.S. Lewis. Narnia, where lies breed fear, where loyalty is tested, where all hope seems lost. During the last days of Narnia, the land faces its fiercest challenge. Not an invader from without, but an enemy from within. Lies and treachery have taken root, and only the king and a small band of loyal followers can prevent the destruction of all they hold dear in this, the magnificent ending, The Chronicles of Narnia. So, children's fiction, fantasy fiction, yeah. So, in this book you first off meet a donkey and an ape, and they find a lion skin floating in the river, and the ape decides to tie this lion skin to the donkey, who is called Puzzle, by the way, and convinces Puzzle to pretend to be Aslan, and tries to convince all of Narnia that Aslan is back. So yeah, the whole final battle is based on a lie from an ape and a reluctant donkey, and the ape is just hungry for power, and it's only the king at first who knows that it's not Aslan. Throughout the story, Narnia falls apart because they have got an intruder trying to convince them that Aslan is back when he's not, and has managed to get their own power and is hell-bent on destroying Narnia, which is what happens. Spoiler alert. To be honest, there was so much stuff in this book that I wasn't expecting. The end, I did not see coming at all. I should have done, based on the religious themes of the book and everything. I technically should have seen it coming, but I didn't. So yeah, when the king is tied up during like the whole rebellion bit where the king is there going, I don't think that is Aslan, the stars aren't aligned, there's no way this is Aslan, and the ape is there going, yes it is, yes it is. He brings out the donkey in the middle of the night when nobody can really see him, so that it kind of looks like a lion in the dark, but it obviously isn't. But when the king is tied to a tree for even implying that Aslan is not back, he begs and wishes for someone to come help him, and then he falls into a dream state where he enters the real world and sees the Pevensies, and he sees the two, I say kids, they're now adults from the very first book, from The Magician's Nephew. And then there's also Jill and Eustace from the last couple of books there as well. It seems they get together on a regular basis to discuss the wonders of Narnia. But Susan is not involved in this conversation anymore. Susan has grown up and kind of forgotten about Narnia from the sound of things. She remembers it as a dream and not reality, so Susan isn't involved anymore, which is sad. But it's that whole idea of that, like, some people do still have that child within them, and some people just grow up a bit too quickly, and like, I will always be the kind of person who just embraces the inner child. I was at an audition this morning, and when we went in, they're just like, we just want to watch you play. The director for the company was just there going, yeah, we just want to watch you play, and we are all adults. And I was just there going, yeah, I like to play. There is nothing wrong with playing make-believe as an adult. There's nothing wrong with it. And to be honest, that's kind of what reading is, because as you read, this make-believe world goes into your head. Well, at least it does for me, because that's how I read. Not everybody reads the same way as me, I know that. It really just puts out that story that, like, some people, you know, do forget. They leave childish stuff in childhood, and it's just like, there's nothing wrong with it, but I feel like everybody should still be in touch with that inner child, because ultimately life is just one big game. That's how I think of it, and you get to plan what you do with it. Obviously we could go a lot deeper than this, but this is like the surface level. But yeah, so the fact that you find out that Susan has just kind of like grown up and has forgotten Narnia, is kind of sad. It's kind of sad. This book felt like it was really quick. When I look at like e-versions of it, it says it's 224 pages. So I think the other books kind of average between like 150 and 250, I think. So it is all still just relatively short stories with a lot packed in. Like, it feels like on every single page there is something new. Yeah. It's after that brief dream where the king's like, help me. And then like seconds after he's woken up, Jill and Eustace appear saying, we are the only ones that could come back because we're children, the adults aren't allowed back in Narnia, but we're going to do what we can to help you. Sorry for the wait. And he's just there going, what do you mean sorry for the wait? I saw you in that dream like a minute ago. And they're going, oh well, for us it's been a week. Because we know time between Narnia and our world are completely different. They're on completely different planes. But yeah, the fact that this story comes down to an evil ape trying to convince Narnia that a donkey is a lion, it just sounds so ridiculous. But it almost feels quite current, to be honest, and I think that's probably why it still works. I mean, there are still some certain things in there which was just like, if it was remade, I'm sure some part of the storyline just wouldn't work anymore, especially when they're referring to a certain race of people in Narnia as darkies. That's a quote from the book. I'm not saying it like as me, it's a quote from the book, and I was just there going, this feels a little on the nose. Well, I say a little on the nose. But yeah, I feel like some of the language is very dated in this book, so just be aware of that if going into this book. You know, it's very dated, it's very of its time. Sometimes people say that's not an excuse, but I just think you do have to take into consideration when this was written. Yeah, but ultimately this was a really good story and a really interesting way to end everything, because I'm going to go into major spoilers now. If you have not read the ending of the book, I suggest you go read it and then come back, because I am going to tell you the shocking ending that I did not see coming. Because when basically, as Narnia is falling apart and Narnia comes to its end, because Aslan eventually does come back and says, no, this is the end of this Narnia as we know it. Having seen the creation of Narnia in the first book, you're now seeing its complete destruction from the war and the battle that ensues from a power-hungry ape turning a donkey into a lion. Yeah, there comes a point when the Pevensies arrive back in Narnia, and it is just the fact, first of all, you know that they're not supposed to be there, because it has been stated in other stories that once you reach a certain age you can't go back into Narnia. So it's just like, oh, are they really supposed to be here? Oh, but then is this not really Narnia? It's like that kind of limbo area that the kids were in at the beginning of The Magician's Nephew, where they were jumping into the ponds and things. And they're just like, oh, that's probably just like the excuse for it, the fact that they're not technically in Narnia because Narnia has been destroyed, so where they are isn't really Narnia. And you find out they were actually on a train when they found themselves summoned to Narnia, and they had kind of like a bang and a pop. And when I think it is Lucy that says to Aslan, oh, I thought we weren't supposed to be here. And Aslan says, no, that pop that you heard on the train was actually an accident, and now you're dead. That moment when Aslan tells the Pevensies that they're dead, it was just like, what? And it's done in such a calm way as well. that moment when you find that out and you're just like, wait, what did I just read? What did I just read? Hang on a second. They were on the train, they heard a pop and they found themselves in Narnia. Or, well, you know, the non-Narnia, which you then later find out is a new Narnia, which is why the pregnancy's allowed there in the first place, or the second place. But it's the whole thing of like, Lucy's there going, oh, do we have to go? I want to be able to stay Narnia forever. And then Aslan goes, well, you will stay Narnia forever because you are dead, and this is where you go when you die. It gets very, very dark very, very quickly. I mean, there's already a lot of darkness to these books. As you go through the series and kind of like grow up with the books, you do see the stories getting darker and darker and darker. And then this one just completely just took it off the scale when, in that moment when Aslan tells the kids that they have actually died and that they are destined to stay in the new Narnia forever. Can you tell? It's just like, I finished this the other day. This complete shock, that ending. You don't find out who is narrating it, and I don't know who I've decided is narrating it. It has to be somebody who kind of watched over it all, to be honest. I almost, in my mind, think it might have been Aslan narrating it all, because he was the constant throughout the whole thing. So it's just like, maybe it's Aslan in a way telling the story of all these kids and how they ended up to live in Narnia forever. But yeah, Aslan is the only constant, to be fair, through all the stories, like apart from the kids like passing the stories on to each other. But the way that the children are wrote about makes me think that if it's narrated by anybody, it's going to be Aslan as the all-knowing creator and essentially god of Narnia. When I was explaining like the premise of this book to my mum and dad, and they were just like, okay, because it just sounds like totally bizarre to recite the story of this to somebody else. Because even with the other Narnia books, at least they were still quite out there. But with this one, it's the whole thing of an ape and a donkey try to convince everybody that Aslan is back by tying an old lion's skin to a donkey. That's what it is. It's an ape, a power-hungry ape, ties an old lion's skin to a donkey and convinces everybody that this donkey is Aslan because he is wearing a lion coat. It is so stupid, but amazingly, it's a brilliant series. And yeah, if they ever do adapt that final book, I just do think that a lot of stuff needs to be looked at and updated because of when it was written, and because of the dated terms, and because of how they disguise themselves. Because there is a point in the book where, is it Camellan? Basically, the Camellans are described as being dark, and there's a point when they are in the battle and the king and the two children realise they need to disguise themselves, and so they paint their skin darker. It's one of those things where you kind of understand the disguise in the context of the story, because they can't just walk in as they are, because they will stand out. But at the same time, I'm just like, this feels like something that could not be done today. You understand the disguise, but you're just there thinking, these days, that kind of disguise would not fly. Them painting their skin darker, it's essentially blackface, what they're doing in the story. And I was just there reading thinking, oh, this feels weird. If it ever gets adapted, I'm sure that section of the storyline will be transformed, because there is no way on earth that any production would get away with doing blackface in a play, even as a disguise. Yeah. But I have now finished The Last Battle, and The Complete Chronicles of Narnia, this book, is going into the top of this wardrobe with the rest of the books that I have read. I have recently started reading The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. It's literally just above you on my bookcase. And so I will be taking that to my shift tonight for if I am not on the inside of the auditorium. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you are not already. And I will see you tomorrow with another day of Vlogmas. What was that? I have no idea. Anyway, bye, see you tomorrow. Bye. Ow. I just stabbed myself in the chin. But yeah,